round of applause to Lizzy Hobbs. Captain, do you want to come round?
Yes, I'll come round.
Thank you, Martin. Thanks for having me here at Animation Club. It's a really nice opportunity, not just to talk about me and to show the films together, but also just to see a live audience, you know, and just watch the whites of your eyes. You can also take the opportunity, if you like, to respond, to shout, no, it's too much, or you can ask questions, just chip in if I'm chatting, because it's nice informal setting, so I'd really like some comments or thoughts. I'm going to do what other people have done at Animation Club and just start at the beginning, because it makes a nice sort of, hopefully you'll see some improvement as well as you go through, but also just it provides a sort of context for the way that I work. As Martin says, it's all about materials, and it's specifically about printmaking actually. I don't know if there's any other printmakers here. Vivian. Yes, a printmaker. I started off doing illustration at Edinburgh College of Art in 1987, and I didn't do any commercial illustration. I just used it as a chance to kind of make books and write little stories, and then when I graduated in 92 I started to sort of print these little books, and I sort of delved into the world of artist books, which is a little bit like animation. It's a whole world of people who make their own little editions of books using traditional printmaking, so etching and lithography and screen printing and woodcuts, and there's artist book fairs and you go along and you sell your books, and it's fantastic. But then after sort of 10 years or so I thought it's really quite frustrating, because if people sort of start reading your book then it gets dirty and you can't sell it anymore. I don't know, there's a problem with making 10 of a book, because you can't sort of show it to everybody and you can't display it. I didn't know how to sort of get a big audience. So one of the reasons that I started getting into animation was really to kind of have a bigger sort of audience and to tell stories in a sort of nice or time-based way, which is what I liked. Because when you make a book, you can't control how people read it, and if they skip loads of pages in the middle, it's really annoying. Whereas with a film, people have to watch it from the beginning to the end, and that's I like the sort of control. But I have I've been to a dusty part of my house, and I've brought some just 3 of the little books that I made in the olden days, and you can also see. It's difficult to see here, but you can also see how they're becoming a little bit like animations in a way, or storyboards. This is called Two Mature Individuals, and it charts the sort of love process of sea slugs and humans. And it's literally sort of 6 frames where the slugs get adding more and more erotic in my mind, and the humans just sort of come together for a sort of kiss. So it's a screen printed book. I made about 10 of them. And so this is, oh no, I made 28 of them. And I made one called Tiny Current, which is about a tiny current as well. So you can have a look at these in the interval if you like. I printed Tiny Currents. It's about the army. And then this one and this one is a Jacob's Ladder called Françoise, and it's just a story which of a frog being picked up and kissed and then just chucked in the water again. So I was sort of trying to tell stories, but and so sometimes they're a little, looking at them now I can see that there's a sort of need to bring it to life with in some way. I went to a place in Edinburgh where I was living called FVAC or something, a film and video place, and I borrowed a camera, and I've got a good fuzzy felt collection. I've got 15 fuzzy felt boxes. Nobody's allowed to play with them. And the first 2 films, they're 50 seconds or something, Glenda and Overexcited, and I sent it to the Edinburgh Festival and they showed it. They're a bit rude, but actually we can show them. I do that.
This is a terrible buzz on the sound. I'm going to turn the sound down. I'll just.
So then I sent that to Dundee, and I went to do a course there called electronic imaging, which I don't know if anyone else has done that. it's a sort of year-long course where you learn about. It was really trying to get people into Soho to start sort of working for production companies and direct pop videos and things, but there were some artists going there who were interested in using the technology in an unusual way. So there's a lot of compositing and using director and things, but there was this kind of rostrum camera, and at the end when everybody wanted the equipment and there was lots of fighting about the editing suites, I said, what's this, you know, thing that nobody wants? And it was just a little room with a camera, and so I then made this film, The Grim Reaper, and I did it all on one piece of paper, each shot's on one piece of paper, and I used this stuff called touche, which is for lithography. So I was just using the materials that I knew about, the paper I knew and the materials, and I just mocked it up with new paper, and I started using this funny technique that I used for the next few films, but I'll show The Grim Reaper so you can see the sound's really rough. It's just me and the... So then, that was 1999, so then I sent that to Animate Projects when they were doing one of their calls for filmmakers. This was the year 2000, and I think they probably did 5 or 6 a year. I don't know, is that right, Buddy? Because you did one.
No, I didn't do that.
Oh, didn't you? They did a few every year, and so it was. I think it was quite easy to get one in those days. I sent that Grim Reaper.
It wasn't that easy to get. It wasn't that easy.
Not that easy, but it wasn't
easier than not
now.
Being able to get it at all.
Yeah. Yeah. So then I made The Emperor, which is 4 minutes, and so I sort of wrote that. I'd written The Grim Reaper, and I kind of liked the process of writing and telling a story over time, and so I really worked quite hard on the actual script of The Emperor and getting it sort of right and telling the story right. And it's the story of the Emperor Napoleon. It's a true story of his pickled private parts, which were found in a jar and sold at auction at Christie's. And I read this in the paper, and I thought, oh my God, how come nobody else has made a film about this? You know? So I made this film. It did upset people. I did get a call to the production company. I was working at Red Kite, and there was a call that came through, and they said, it's not true. You know, there was this horrified French people. They said it was a piece of his heel, because it's only tiny, they thought. So it might not be true, but it's been sold as a piece of the Emperor. It's been sold as a pickled private parts, but so I just went to I'll show it. So that was my first experience of working with production company and post-production, proper budgets, and having time to spend. And I think because I'm not trained as an animator, I really needed the time, because each piece of paper, each time I tried to animate something, I probably did it 6 or 7 times, because it just never quite worked out, you know. They would set up across the room and then get to the door, and they were like that much bigger than So there's lots and lots of sheets of paper, and I did have practice on it. It was a nice chance. I was lucky to get that sort of break, you know, from Animate. I'm not going to show The Witches, actually, because that was another film I made in Scotland with Red Kite, with a production fund called, it was a nice production fund with which you could collaborate with the writer, and I collaborated with a lovely writer called Maura McKinnon, who's a live action filmmaker, documentary. But those 2 films got me to go to the NFB in Canada, the National Film Board of Canada. One of the producers there had seen The Emperor and the Witches at Ottawa, actually, and he said, did I have a new idea? And I said, oh, I did have a new one, I can come with it. So I went to Ottawa and then to Montreal to make the true story of Swan of Bean. I just finished that in time. I was extremely pregnant, and so I managed to kind of race back on the last flight from Montreal and then have my own big fat baby. Big fat greedy baby boy. So it was, the timing wasn't great, but I did manage to, it's nice to squeeze a film out before the and then I think I might skip the old man and go to
Okay.
the next page, because I think I've got them in the wrong order.
While we're skipping through, I'd just like to say I saw that film projected on a 35mm print and it looked amazing. In a way, this sort of PAL version doesn't do justice to the impact and the detail and so on. It was absolutely stunning.
I think also because it was an NFB film, they can do amazing prints and post-production on it, so they do always look wonderful.
May I ask, was there any compositing involved, or was it all what you see was what was composed under the camera?
That's an interesting question, because I'm always, I don't like to do anything other than what's been done. I think even if you could tidy it up, yes, it's like a little performance. So each shot is what I've done, and I feel very strongly that it shouldn't be kind of tampered with after that, because then you can't trust what you see.
Yeah.
So, I think the next film it was Little Skipper actually that I made, so I might just pop down to that one. That's all right. Because I think family life, as Martin knows, and lots of other people here probably know, it's not really conducive to sort of great big films or going away much or anything. So then I suppose I was just in the studio in the toilet working away on my own. So I made this little film. It's a minute long. And again, it goes back to printmaking and it goes back to books. So in a way, it's just sort of like returning to my roots and making something on my own within my control that I quite liked, you know. So it's a minute long. It has got sound, yes. I'll turn it on. Then we'll go back to the previous page there, I think, which has got the old very old man. Is everyone, because I know it can make you feel a bit queasy seeing all the watercolours. Is everyone doing all right? Because there's one more to go. And this is the one that I made in the bathroom, on the bathroom tile, and it was with the Hackney Film Fund. So again, I think the Sawney Bean was the kind of grandest production I've ever done or I'll ever do. And so now I'm very much making films on my own in the bathroom whenever I want to, and I think that's probably how I prefer it. The Old Man, yes, was made on a very small budget, just me and my stuff. And it's a story, another true story of someone called Thomas Parr, and it's from a poem by John Taylor in the 17th century about a man who lived to the age of 100 and I don't know how old he got to now, 152. And so I kind of told the story of that. And I was really lucky to get Edward Fox to do the voiceover for it as well. He does a lovely job. He said, I'm not going to do any accents for you, but it's full of accents. So we'll see that one now. It's 6 minutes.
Can I ask about the painting? I'm fascinated with it's watercolour that you're able to move
sort
around.
of blue ink on a tile.
And you're able to sort of kind of move it around with a brush.
Yes, wriggle it around and then take it off. And
So
there's
how
nothing
large
in-
is that tile?
Oh, it's just a bathroom tile. Didn't measure it,
So I sort of imagined it was quite a bit
Yes,
bigger.
no, it's just, there's one tile and it's blank now, so the whole film, there's nothing left, and I quite like that because it's not, it's hard to store a film once you've done a film on paper. Where do you put it, what do you make it into? And so the tile was appealing at the time, yeah.
So you didn't have several tiles with different scenes on it, it was just
No,
one tile?
That's important to have one tile. To me, it was important to just keep going, yes.
And do you work in order or do you edit?
Yes, I do edit, so I do bits. I love animating dead men, so I just start with that. I love it. That's, for me, that's... I still haven't finished, I just keep going until, I don't know, yes.
How's it recorded, by the way? How are you sort of recording the image?
Yes, just on a rostrum.
Oh, right, okay.
That was just video, actually, so I've only just upgraded to, Dragon Frame, so that's, PAL TV.
When you were working on the earlier ones, were you using some kind of video assist so you could see where you were and how the movements were going, or was it all done intuitively?
They were, yes. No, they were on video anyway. But at the NFB I had a video assist and DSLR.
Oh, right, okay.
Yes, so I did have video assist there. but the others were just on video. Yeah, on video cameras, you know,
Okay.
2001.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah.
What, like an EOS setup?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, you could see the picture if you were going, or was it blind? Were you shooting blind?
There was one I was shooting blind, but so I think that was Sawney Bean probably. Yes, I think so. And I was just taking still. That's it. Yeah, I was just taking stills with a Nikon and then importing them to After Effects and assembling them there. So that was a bit more. Yeah, I was glad I'd done.
But
a
they
couple.
didn't have Dragon in those days.
No.
They hadn't invented it.
No, that was the best they could do. Yeah, really high resolution. And actually I didn't quite manage to finish it. I still had 2 shots to go, so they sent me over with their hard drive and their camera, and I sent them back by FedEx. Yeah, it was quite snazzy sort of thing. But yeah, so now in the studio I've got a DSLR and Dragon frame, and that's brilliant, isn't it? So yeah. I might just show Imperial Prize of Fumble and then we can have a break.
Yes, I think a break is...
Because I have got some of the other stuff that I do, but not in its entirety, just little snippets. But if I finish with my films and then...
With the very old film.
Yeah, yes, the old. Yeah.
Did you have the soundtrack before you started, or was that after?
After, yes, yeah. Actually, I usually put it in place in my own voice and then try and do... Ideally, you'd record with the actor first and then do it against another, yeah. With this one, with the new one, with Imperial Prize of Fumbled, I recorded the actor first and then made the film and then edited it and then just made some changes and then popped him in again, so he came twice and just, yeah, that's the best way probably, so you can hear his voice. So this one's made, as Martin said, on 35mm and going right back to my printmaking roots and carving each frame with rubber stamps. So I did a lot of, when I was printmaking for those 10 years before I started animating, I did a lot of residencies, abroad printmaking residencies, and one of them in Finland, a 6-month residency, I did a lot of woodcuts. So I had these wonderful tools and I got a little bit more dexterous, and so I can carve sort of small, you can have a look at these anyway. They're not so hard, it's like sort of butter to carve. But, so I printed on 35, and I have got a sort of 35mm viewer that I can look at the sort of rushes, but actually, because it was a random acts commission, so the budget's tiny, so I did have to do it digitally in the end. I just scanned each frame with a domestic scanner and edited them myself, but ideally I would have liked to have cut it on 35 and then made a print so that it retained sort of its integrity, but so this is a sort of digital version, and also it had to go on Channel 4, so that's why I did a digital version too. It's 4 minutes long. That was in the found in the Austrian archives about, and it was the actual document that Imperial Prize of Fumbled had written to justify having allowed the villagers in Kisilova to exhume and spear. This was the first sort of document of the exhumation of a vampire, and so I found this document and thought it's a great sort of premise, the idea of a sort of an administrator going somewhere and trying to deal with the sort of motions of a village in Serbia at the time, sort of trying to manage their fear, and so I quite liked his, this topic. Yeah.
Could you say something more about, maybe you already said it and I didn't understand it. How did you make it? You had these little woodcuts,
yes.
and they're stamped on
yes, like
onto
that,
a third,
yeah.
without
Yes.
any, and you're how are you registering it?
Yes.
You're doing
it's
it
not-
by eye
Yeah.
because of the wobble.
Because there's a lot of wobble, isn't
Which
there?
is wonderful.
Yeah. Yes. Well, I met Stephen Wollashan. At the London International Animation Festival, and he works on 35, and he's got a shoebox which has got a registration device and these 2 turny things, and so I copied that, and so I have got a shoebox, and so you can sort of advance it to the right number of frames, and I mean it's not exact. You could see them on there.
But you had to make all of these little.
Yes, I've got 800 or 900 of those. Yes, anymore.
So it
Yeah.
took a bit of time to make those.
I go on the back as well. Yeah, front and back. Yes, a little bit, but actually I'm quite fast. I'm quite speedy animator really, because of slapdash. I don't mind. I don't mind the wobble. I don't mind the.
How about the colour? Was it again these inks?
I just chose a sort of limited. I thought it might help a bit if you could see when the vampire came, because it's quite hard to realise what's going on in the story. A lot of, especially friends from Europe, have said, looks all right, but I have no idea what's going on. No idea. So I know it's hard to sort of see, so I thought I'll help with a bit of colour here.
What inks did you use that it sticks to the
Yeah, that one. It's just in Blade Rubber Stamps opposite the British Museum. They've got
celluloid.
So,
but it's ink that kind of bonds to it well.
It does bond, and especially if you don't bleach your film.
Yeah.
If you get it run through the press tech, then you can take it to the processing lab and they process it clear so that it's still got the emulsion on one side. So you can use the emulsion to help. If you bleached it, it's just like plastic. It's not got anything, to sort of stick to. Yeah, I love this. Yeah, I've done quite a few workshops for people sort of in this technique, and it's a really nice way of working. I can always come up with something sort of fresh, and it's amazing. I think,
When you say you've got 800 of those, how long did it take you to make that film?
I probably started a few years ago, and then the NFB gave me a tiny bit of money to kind of develop it, and they were going to put it through their development process, and it kind of got so far, and then they had a funding cut, so they stopped, and then I sort of stopped, and then I sort of thought, actually, I'll just keep going, and then Abigail from Animate Projects came along, and she said, you can slot it into this. They had a little fund, Random Acts fund, so then I sort of started again. So probably I would say if I'd been working every day, maybe 6 months or something. Yeah. So not too long really. Yeah. And I made a 3-minute cut for the Channel 4 version because they have to be 3 minutes long, but it was a bit tight, so I made another version for myself with this original music as well, which I wasn't allowed to use on the television, so this is my sort of preferred.
What music did you use on Channel 4 then?
Barnaby Templar's collaborator Bradley did a version of this for me, which he hated doing, but
Oh, so this is the original...
Balkan music, and for the Channel 4 version they wouldn't.
You couldn't buy the rights?
I tried to buy the rights, but they were original recordings, and the people who hold the recordings said that they didn't know where anybody was, and they hadn't signed anything ever. So they said I could use it, but I wasn't allowed to use it for Channel 4.
Oh, that's okay.
Yeah. So the one on the telly is a little bit more. It's just a.
You couldn't get. They couldn't.
Yeah. It's okay. It's all right. Yeah. It's just for a musician, that's a horrible job to copy something. Because I was just like, it doesn't sound right, it's just not a nice thing to do, but it's what they did, it's okay.
But you can show it with this one for festivals, can't you?
Yes, it's funny, they say not for profit, you're never really going to profit from anything like this.
Do you want to have a break?
Yeah, would that be good?
Yeah, absolutely.
I haven't got loads more, but it might be interesting to see the things that I make money from, I suppose. A couple of things that I make money from after,
And perhaps you can show have people look at the...
Yes, of course, I'll leave them there.
As well.
Yeah.
Well, no, I meant perhaps people could gather around in the second half and
Oh well, they're just have a look and then.
Yeah. Oh, okay. All right. Well, okay. So we'll be back in about 10 minutes. Can we have another round of applause for Lizzy, please?
Showed all the films, but I thought it wouldn't quite represent what my life is like. I don't work really commercially. Since 1991 I've been doing workshops with young people or old people. My very first workshops in 1991 was with young people in a psychiatric hospital, so I do a lot of work with mental health service users and old people and schools with Shelley and John. And so that's how my life is, really. It's not all making films from end to end. also I teach at Anglia Ruskin University as well. So I just thought I would show just a couple of the things that I do in the sort of workshop setting, and then a couple of things that I have done commercially, pop video and another piece for Katie Tunstall, which I did. The film I'm going to show, The Nature of Beau, is a collaboration with Age Concern, and so it was made with a group of older people who met every week to do drawings. And so I took them on a canal trip, and we did drawings of the canal and animated their drawings. So they did all the drawings and I sort of in between them, so it was like a sort of traditional animation. So I'm just going to show The Nature of Beau there, Martin, which is 2 minutes long. So I really like working with people who've never done animation before, partly because my skills aren't really up to teaching professional animators much, you know, but if you're working with, you can just use animation to amaze people, you know, and to bring them into the world and to talk about subject matter that sometimes needs animation instead of live action. And so the films, I've made 3 films with young people in foster care with a group in Cambridge, and this is it's a kind of research project actually. It's with the University of Cambridge, and it's to do with researching what young people in care need when they leave care or when they move from care into independent living. And this has become a sort of theme of work for me that's quite interesting, working with universities and who want to publish research in ways that is kind of interesting or more accessible to people. So I've done 3 films with Cambridge, and I'm about to start a new film with the University of London about young people and depression. So it's a good way of masking people's identity, but also a way of engaging young people in the process of animation as a way of getting them to talk about their experiences. So it's quite a nice way of using animation, I think, and it really suits the way that I like to work. So I'm just going to show, I think, an excerpt of that. It's on the next page, Martin. It's called Our House.
Sorry, it's
on the
slow at responding.
Oh, that's okay. The last one there.
Sorry. As I say, it's very slow to respond, and
that's it.
60 minutes.
Thanks. I think it's just a minute or something. It's on the internet, so you can see the rest of those. And they function as sort of training videos for people who want to get into foster care, or so they've been sort of taken up as ways of engaging people in discussions about what young people need. So I'm quite proud of the work because it's sort of it's doing what it's meant to do, really. It's not kind of polished or sort of brilliant animation or well structured in a way, but it does have all the information that the young people wanted to convey. So that's quite a large part of my work. And then I've made a pop video with Katie Tunstall. I put a little excerpt there. If you want to see that, shall I show that as well?
Please.
Yeah, okay. I think it's just another minute or so. Cells, actually, because he put a little advert on the Animation Club Facebook page saying he had loads of cells to give away. Do you remember that? Or a while ago, and so we went to get them, so I just used all of his stuff, which was really nice. So they were old cells on those. So that pop video, she'd shot it in live action with somebody else and it hadn't worked out, so she said, can you rescue it? So I thought, well, I probably can a bit, but it did take longer than she'd hoped. But so I printed it out, you know, all 2,500 frames of it, and just snipped it out and refilmed it so that it was a bit more, yeah. So,
sorry, was that rotoscoped or
no, I just cut out her, printed out all the photos with in snappy snaps and cut them out and then refilmed them again under the rostrum with frames of painted
How
stuff.
many pictures was that?
2005.
A lot of printer.
Yeah, and what was annoying was she had this sort of hairdo with all these plaits. Oh, it was really annoying. And then he went round a twist. And then when it went on YouTube, everyone was like, why is this pop video coming out now? The song was released a year ago. If you only knew, you know. So she just gave me, you know, a few £1,000 to sort of just do that. It wasn't an official job. It was just a, you know, yeah, because I'd made these other films for her already. Yeah. I can show that one is hers. I'll show that and then we can stop and do.
When you cut these photographs of these 2,500, they were actual photographs, and you cut them with a pair of scissors.
Yeah.
Sorry to ask such
Yeah,
a basic
no,
question.
okay.
You know, there was no trick to it.
No.
And yet you could have actually sort of used loads of other processes to do that.
Yes, I could have, I suppose.
But you chose this very physical way of doing
Yes.
it.
I always like to sort of be, the rostrum is my little place, you know, and I feel a bit strange. The computer doesn't really work for me, just doing things in the computer, because obviously I had the whole video on, you know, I could have done it in After Effects, but she got some shots that were too dark, some weren't working, some she was squashed up there, and so I needed to kind of, there was so much I needed to do, I just needed to see all the photos lined up on the carpet and then just make decisions that way. It sounds really strange.
It does.
It makes sense. I think it makes good sense.
Do you think?
Yeah, I think so.
Well,
I mean, that's how we always used to work.
Yes,
I mean,
yes.
there was lots of pop videos I worked on in the sort of 80s, and that's how we did them. We actually had a technique, well, named for the technique, it's called photo technique. And there was quite a lot, I don't know if you've heard of Christoph Simon, who was a German director who used to work in London, but me and Jen did a lot of work with Christoph, and that was his favourite technique, basically printing out the band. And then we'd all have the band, and then we'd do all the animation, and then do exactly what you did, paint on cell, paint all the animation onto the cell that you really shot.
Yeah, and also with the young people, I use the same technique with them, and that really works because you've got 10 to 15 young people and one rostrum, so you can't, I don't know, it's the only way, you just give each person their own photos and they can do with them what they like, you know, and they really appreciate that because it's like a flip book, and it's like, and they're defacing themselves, it's like sort of selfies, and you know, so it really appeals to teenagers and working in that way. You know.
Yeah, and it's much more physical as well. I mean, when you do something, when, you know, if you'd have done it and you'd have had to green screened out the cells or matted out the cells, and it's a completely different part of your brain when you sort of physically like things, like visually like that. And I think people often think they've just got to sit on the computer all day in After Effects doing it. It's not necessarily going to save them loads of time anyway, because they're going to make, you know, often in After Effects you just do the same thing once you do it, then I'll shift it a bit, and you spend the whole day just fiddling.
Yeah.
Whereas that's actually, once you've done it, haven't you?
Yeah.
Why was it 2.5? Sorry, come back to this
Well,
number.
maybe it wasn't,
Because
yes.
it looked
like
you
made up a
know,
number
presumably
after that.
it wasn't like sort of like 25 frames per second.
No,
It was sort of
12.
like 12.
3
okay.
minutes, yes.
Okay, it was 3 minutes. Okay, so yeah. I can't quite work.
In Photo Box, the more photos you order, the cheaper it gets. You know, so you
Yeah.
can get them down to about 3p if you order 1,000 at once. It's really good.
But then you had to number each
Yes.
one of the photographs so that everything was in sequence.
Well, I tend to export it with a time code.
Okay.
Yeah.
Getting a bit mechanised there.
So you didn't cut the time code off?
Well, yes, that's something that often happens when it comes off, yeah. And then they send them back to your shuffle, you know, or
Yes.
you know what I'm going to do. They must be wondering what I'm doing with all this stuff. Yeah, she's the one who orders 2,000 photos at once. It's quite like it.
Ask a very basic question, but how are you animating all those 2,500 stones?
Then I put them back under the rostrum with the cells, and I've painted sort of circles and blobs and put it with the cell on top, and so I'm just sort of lining her up again. So I have the original pop video, and I can just sort of see it with an onion skin or not onion skinning, what's it called when you've got
It is onion skin.
When you've
Where you
got the-
see through in Dragon Frame, it is onion skin.
when you've got the when the
Yeah,
video
you
lined
line, you
up,
put
yeah.
you put the images that line up,
Yeah.
and then so you can basically rotoscope your.
Yeah. Oh, rotoscope, that's what I've done. Yeah, rotoscoped on top, yes.
But I mean the actual shapes, the sort of abstract.
Those are
pieces
just
and everything. Was
random.
it quite random?
Yes.
So you kind of did the whole load of
Did
stuff.
loads of them, yeah, and then bring them
Yeah,
in
and
and
just
yes.
sort of saw what looked good with which images.
Yes,
Yeah.
just jazzed around really. And I've done that I made a little film about a beetle coming out of a water lily recently for the Botanical Gardens. It's on there, but I did that in the same technique, but because I used a YouTube video of the beetle, and then I just had to sort of conceal it. I've used it, so I painted on it, jazzy stuff and stuff. Yeah, it's a nice way of working, especially if you're not that good at drawing something, beetles and things. That's not my stuff.
You know,
Yeah.
sorry, no, you were about to say something.
No, I wasn't really.
Well, can I just return to Our House, that excerpt? How did you actually do that? You seem to have a couple of film sections, and then you were sort of painting over them.
Yes, same way, yeah.
So, and what is that same way?
Printing out the photos and
You're
giving
kidding,
them back to
you
the
printed
young
the
people.
picture?
Yeah.
I can't believe that.
Because that way the young people can have their own
That's not
photos.
rotoscoped or anything like that. You
No,
didn't.
no,
So
no,
it's
just
all printed.
and then they draw on them. Yeah, just to, they knew what they wanted to do to make, but also they had to conceal themselves. That's what they didn't do all of them. They gave me some, back again when we only had 4 days, so.
Was the full project, was that rotoscoped?
No, that was their drawings of swans, 10 women and then drawings of swans, and then in between, so I drew them and then went from one to the other. So that's more traditional animation. Just
okay.
Yeah.
Were you at all tempted to tidy up their drawings? I bet you weren't.
Yes, I love their drawings.
Yeah,
they're
they're
so
beautiful.
beautiful. Yeah.
But they're
Those
so
swans.
different. They were like really varied in their ability, but they were all gorgeous,
They
weren't
were
they?
lovely. Yes, so nice. The swans.
But it was just like some of the swans were really detailed, and then they just got that really simple.
Yes.
Did any of them comment on that when they saw the film?
They really liked it. Yeah, they were confident drawers, so they liked their drawings, and they were amazed to see them together. And we went on a trip, and we were drawing together, and that was the most lovely part of it. And we were meant to go along this path, and it was probably half the width of this room. But the first one stopped, and she went, "Oh, no, I'm not going along there." I went, "What?" She went, "Oh, I'm not going along there." The canal was miles away, but she wouldn't go, and none of them went. So they were sort of clustered on the edge. We were drawing things that we could see from where we were, not going on the path. That wasn't.
And Lizzy, for your work with young people and in mental health and things, as well as approaching it as an animator, have you had any training or anything? Or have you just gone into it from an animator? And
Yes. That's what we do, isn't it? We go in, we're like a SWAT team. We also work, Shelley and John and I work at the National Portrait Gallery, so we work with families and young people there. We go to schools. Shelley does a lot of work at Great Ormond Street. So really, you're relying on the staff. You're relying on the staff to support you. So you're communicating with them in order to communicate. And with the young people, we have a huge team.
Yeah, you don't blunder in and just stand.
You don't blunder in. I did at the beginning. When I first worked in this field, it was really, you were left on your own, and that was, kind of crazy. Yeah.
But you don't get any training, or do you?
Some, a little bit.
Yeah.
Depends what you're doing.
Yeah.
It's a different kind of area, really, isn't it? I mean, if you're working with vulnerable people, then obviously you get a lot of kind of framing. But I think possibly earlier in maybe some years ago, someone would have just given you some stuff and pushed you in a room.
Yeah.
But maybe that wouldn't happen now.
No, never.
Depends on the individuals, doesn't it, really, how much information you give them.
We're quite good at it now, aren't we? We've probably done about 200 school workshops, I think, I would say. I think 200 workshops, and so when we started, we just do, you know, you do 20 schools a year, wouldn't you? Just going one a year. So that's, you know, that's the money side of it, anyway. I might just show fans, it's 1 minute, and then we can stop it. Like that's the Katie Tunstall one. She told me a story and then she wanted it animated for her. She was doing a sort of DVD of her work, and it's a story about her visiting a dentist, and I animated this on a tile, but I did it with carbon paper, and so I sort of did it a little bit blind, but carbon paper on a tile.
What does it mean when you say blind? Sorry,
so I couldn't quite, because it's carbon, I couldn't sort of really see what I was doing, because it's black and I was drawing on it. So it's like monoprinting, but yeah. So I was doing it, but it's drawn animation, it's like normal animation for one. That'll do.
No, that's absolutely awesome. Can we have another round of applause for Lizzy? Well, we sort of had a Q&A already, but does anyone else want to ask some questions?
Did you make the sounds for Little Skipper, or did someone else do this?
Yes,
Yeah,
yes.
that's you know, I love the combination of the concept and the sounds really, you know, set it up. You know,
I think it must be the only one that I did too.
How did you do the sounds? What did you?
Just recorded the book.
It's as simple as that.
Yes,
Wow,
yes,
fantastic.
yes,
Yeah.
yes. But as John said, it's not really animation actually, that one.
Yeah, well, I was giving you a Chinese burner. It's kind of pixelation.
It's pixelation, isn't it? Because I've sort of done it with the drawing, I'm just moving the book every time.
So each one of those butterflies you drew yourself and
I
coloured them?
printed actually,
Oh, right.
because yeah, I was quite sure that I didn't want to draw on, so I drew a little bit printed, so they're all butterfly prints of butterflies.
Sorry, I don't quite understand how you printed. You drew a little bit and then you printed.
Yeah, with watercolour.
Oh, you printed onto the opposite
Yeah,
page.
yeah.
Oh, right.
Butterfly print.
You know when you have a paper at school and you paint a butterfly and you fold it over and then it's on the side?
Oh, right, okay. Like a Rorschach test.
Yeah.
But really.
yes, but quite specific, you know, quite tight. I didn't let anything dribble around too much. Yeah, and I like everything to be sort of, to have its own logic.
I just enjoyed the choice of the Emperor Concerto for the Emperor.
I think you appreciated that. Yes.
Yeah.
That was something we thought must happen, you know, to have him. Yeah. Is it Eroica, isn't it?
Is it? Yeah.
Oh, is it? Oh, it is
The
called
Emperor,
the
I think,
Emperor.
yeah.
Okay. Oh,
Yes,
sorry.
I think
yes.
so.
Yes, it is.
Yes.
Well, I thought,
Can I ask you about how did you get Edward Fox to do all these different voices?
Oh, he lives near my dad.
Okay. But he said to you that he couldn't do accents.
He said, "Oh, come along. I won't do any accents for you." And then
How did? But you obviously had to give him a script, and you just
Yes.
said, right, okay, A has got this, you know, he's got that accent, and B has got this accent.
yes. So he did them all. Yeah.
But
just
they
did
were
it.
also they were very nicely synchronised as well. You know, so you got the animation, you had a little mouth and a big mouth, and you
Yes,
know,
maybe I.
Did you look at the video at the same time? 'Cause you
Yeah,
said you did the
I did it to
animation
picture.
first.
Yes. So he did it. I only had him for 20 minutes max.
Oh.
And
Yeah.
you watched the video
Yeah.
and the recording studio.
Yeah.
20
He's such a
minutes.
pro.
Yeah, he did two run-throughs. Yeah, one for good luck, but the first one's fine. Yeah. Yeah. No, it's always the case, though, isn't it? You don't get people for longer than that if they're. I mean.
I had Christopher Timothy for an hour.
What did you do with him the rest of the time?
Voices like that, even if they're in the pub, and telling you a story, actors often do that. It's pretty nearly spontaneous. Isn't
Yes, and because he's 70, I think he's so experienced, and yeah. I've had problems before when I've left it too late and recorded the voice up to the picture and it hasn't worked out. You know, especially for the Emperor. That's why my voice is on it, because I ran out of money and I had used an actor and it didn't work. his voice was too big and the watercolours were too small. Yeah.
With the butterfly film aside, everything else is extremely narrative.
Yes.
But that aside, is there a kind of unifying concern behind your work? Is there something that you could identify as the thing that makes you interested in a particular subject matter, or why you make film?
I like telling stories that are true, that haven't been told before, that are a little bit funny.
Right.
You know, all of those early ones are
Yeah.
all true. There's not any untruths there. So I still look for those in a way. I suppose that's what I like in my own narratives, yeah. But I would animate anything. I don't mind, you know, I wouldn't, yeah, I don't really mind. I'd love to do more pop videos, and
Right.
I'm looking forward to doing a project with young people. You know, as long as I'm animating, it's good. You know, I'm sure everybody feels the same way, you know. It wouldn't matter if it wasn't the right story, and especially nowadays, you know, with animation not being so well funded, you know, you get a little bit less precious about everything, don't you? Just think, well, I'll do that, you know. Yeah, a bit more slapdash, a bit more homemade, and that's not a bad thing, I don't suppose, for animation, really.
Though it's very, very heartening to hear that you felt you'd hit your stride when you'd actually were pretty much doing stuff on your own after
Well, yes, but then I've been lucky enough to have had the chance to do the...
Yeah.
So I think for people graduating today, then it's different, isn't it?
Yeah.
That was probably a bit galling to hear, but, you know, it's nice to have had the chance, you know,
Yes.
when there was funding around, and, yeah.
And sorry, what's next?
What's next? The Depression Project is next, and I'm making a little film about Oscar Kokoschka. I like his funny doll that he had, you know, the Alma doll that he carried around when he split up with his girlfriend. Do you know that?
I don't know that story.
He split up with Alma Mahler. Well, she wasn't Alma Mahler, Oscar Kokoschka, and he had Herman Luz make him an exact replica of Alma Mahler in a doll, which is all hairy, so that he could, you know. So I really like that story. I might make it sexy. I might make it sort of X-rated, so I can't show it at animation club.
You can show anything at animation club.
That's true, yeah.
Come on.
Maybe at the ticketed event.
Yes, yes, in a special booth event. Yeah, that's what I'd like to do.
Have you been tempted to do anything that's more sort of conceptually based, that's more sort of artist film and video and so on, because of your fascinating interest in material and texture and so on? I could imagine you, I don't know, doing a 35mm film loop or something like that.
Yeah, I think I like sort of stories a bit too much. Yes.
With that with the 1 minute film that was shown, you know, in Kerry Baldry's, you know, the 1 minute punch, number 5 or whenever.
Yes.
Did you make that specially for Kerry?
No.
And you just hadn't have it. That was on the back burner somehow.
Yes, and it's been doing all right. You know, that one I made it and I didn't show it for ages, and then it's gone into a hospital in Germany, and it's gone to a stop and go show in San Francisco. They go round touring, so it's sort of fitted in latterly. You know, it hasn't. So it's having a little turn. So it's quite nice, you know. Actually, I suppose it's just slots in. It's not too.
So why did you make it 1 minute?
I thought that was enough. It's finished.
Okay.
You know, look shut. Yeah.
Okay.
Do you think it's too long?
Yeah, but it had to be 1 minute. So you know,
I
it
see,
could be 1 minute
yes.
rather than 1 minute and 5 seconds.
Well, it's 1 minute and 6 actually.
Okay. Cheat.
Yeah. I thought it was done. 1 minute is a good length for a film, isn't it? Yeah, I think.
Do you have a personal favourite? Is there one film that you feel
I like The Emperor. Yeah.
That's your film?
That's my favourite story. Yeah. I don't know if it's the best one. I mean, It's the one I like the best. I
Mm.
love Captain Lepissoir's face when he sees his emperor.
Do you
Tears
ever
come
look
in
at
my
the
own
men's faces when they see the penis being cut
Yes,
off?
and it's a
It's
carrot.
really
It's a little
scary.
carrot. Yeah. We chopped a little carrot and it landed on the table. We recorded that sound for the.
With the story, with the narrative and the story, obviously the process is quite involved. It's very work intensive, and you don't do a lot of editing, you don't do any post production as such. So there must be a lot of planning, or do you?
Yes,
You know, is it? I mean, do you have like storyboards? Do you just have the audio and the dope sheet, or when you're actually like on the tile, for example?
Yes.
How much do you plan that, or is it just?
No, yes, it's sort of just. I plan it probably a bit because sometimes if you've got some funding, you need to present something.
Right, but
Yeah.
but for that stage rather than for your own
Not for
reference.
my own.
it-
Yeah, it's only 30 seconds. Yeah. Do you want to show? I suppose, yeah, it does illustrate the kind of performing aspect of it. I think it's just called trailer. That's the one there, yeah. So you're relying on all those characters to behave the whole way through. And it's really quite a, that's quite a, yeah.
Did you look at any rotoscoping sort of reference for that, or was it just sort of?
I probably had some pictures, yes, or some drawings, but I didn't have any actual.
It's just reference, vision reference.
Yeah.
But was it printed? No, or you mean painted?
Painted on watercolour on one sheet.
On one sheet of watercolour
Yes,
paper?
yes, yes.
And
So kept going and kept
Oh, I
going.
see. So
Yes.
it's lighter and darker and darker and darker. Getting
It's because it's
darker.
getting really soggy and
Yeah.
wet and
I see.
yes, yes. Yeah.
but if you have like a strong orange cat and then the cat moves,
Yes.
do you peel out the previous cat?
Well, I'm just kind of stopping it up with new paper, and so
Yeah.
it's kind of always getting, it's just new paper and straight, yeah. But if you use too much ink, obviously, then they get too dark and you can't see what. So that was, I suppose, I did 10 or 12 tries of it, and that was the one that worked the best, and that, yeah. So it's, yeah.
It's amazing.
Any last question? Okay, well look, what a fantastic evening of films, fascinating insight to your working practices. I think a very singular vision, if I'm allowed to say that, and I think one that really sort of gets across your interest in narrative, texture, working directly, and sense of humour. So,
It's really nice to
okay, well a big round of applause for Lizzy Hobbs.